Now, the second method for estimating the missing precipitation data at a station, that is normal ratio method. Okay, so here first let us again read the theoretical aspect and then we'll try to explain what does this particular thing mean. Okay, if the variation between nx and ni's is considerable, sorry, that is more than 10%, then the precipitation value at station X, that is Px, is computed using the weighted ratio's normal precipitations. The formula for this is Px by Nx is 1 divided by m into bracket P1 by N1 plus P2 by N2 plus and so on up till Pm by Nm. So if I just put a summation for this P1 by N1, P2 by P2 and so on, then my formula is going to become Px is equals to, so Nx from the bottom over here will go to the numerator. So Px is equals to Nx into 1 by m summation of I varying from 1 to m Pi by Ni. Okay, so let us try to understand what this normal ratio method is. Okay, so as per the previous slide what we have seen for the arithmetic mean method, so there if the variation is less than 10%, if the variation between the nx and the ni's is less than 10%, then we usually go for the arithmetic average method. But right now if the variation is more than that, if the variation is more than 10%, then you need to adopt the normal ratio method. Okay, so let us again take one figure. So imagine this is your catchment area. Okay, and imagine these are your rain gauge stations. So let us assume that we have 1 2 3 and 4 rain gauge stations. Okay, just for the sake of explanation, let us take 4 rain gauge stations. So with respect to that, let us give them a number. Okay, so this is 1, let us give them a number. So let us call this as 1, this is 2, this is third one. Yeah, and imagine this one is station X whose particular value we don't know. Okay, or else this particular station X is not working for a specific year. So we have 1 2 3 4 rain gauge stations in a particular catchment area, fine. But whenever we say these m stations, which is that, yeah, so this m which is indicated over here, m is indicating what? In the previous slide, if you remember, it is called as base stations. We call them as base stations. We call them as base station. So base station indicate what? So for the calculation of this particular unknown value, we are going to use the remaining rain gauge stations which are there in that catchment area. So remaining 3 rain gauge stations right now what we have over here, 1 2 and 3 together are going to become the base stations. Now so what will be the value of m based on this? So the value of m is going to be 3 in our particular case. I hope that is clear for you. Okay, now keeping that in mind, so again let us take an example of a particular set of data and then try to calculate the things. So let us have first is your station name. Okay, first is your station name, then we have your PI, that is annual rainfall, and then we have something called as NI, that is normal rainfall. Yeah, we have PI and NI. Okay, so let us use this. So for station 1, okay, here also you will be having the same data. You will have the set of PIs. Yeah, so you will have the set of PI values and NI values for the given stations. So right now let us just try to give these names first. So for station 1, imagine the PI value is let us say some 60 mm, and Ni value for that is around 570 mm. station 2, let us say, had 75 mm value as the annual rainfall, that is Pi, and Ni, let us say it is somewhere around 600. Okay, and the third station is, let us say, we have around 68 mm of Pi value, and similarly for the Ni value, let us say we have around 550. Okay, so these are nothing but the values of P1, okay, P2, P3, similarly N1, N2 and N3. Okay, so keeping this in mind, now the next thing that we need to consider is with respect to the station X. Okay, so in this case, so Pi value for station X is unknown, so this value itself we want to find out with the help of this normal ratio method. Okay, so imagine this particular X value is, let us say, around 400. Okay, so we have around 400 for this. Now the thing that you need to understand over here is, in the previous case for average arithmetic method, we told you that the difference should be what, less than 10%. So we actually had a variation for Ni value. Okay, so Ni was, sorry, Nx, which was there, we had a value, for example right now it is 400, right? So 400 plus or minus, yeah, 10%. This was the particular variation that we had. So 400 minus 10% is what, 40, that is 360. Yeah, so we have one value as 360 to 440. Okay, so we have this particular range of 360 to 440. So if all these particular NIs, okay, so these three, 570, 600 and 550 are varying within the 10%, usually then we can go ahead with the arithmetic average method. But right now if you check out, this particular NX value is 400 and plus or minus 10% is giving me a range of 360 to 440. So if you check out, all the three values over here are out of range of this particular values what we have. So at that point of time we can say that normal ratio method should be used. Now I'll tell you why why there is a difference between arithmetic average and normal ratio method. The reason being, if you imagine this particular scenario, if I take this 4 rain gauge stations in that catchment area, and if I try to draw the effective areas for each of those rain gauge stations, imagine this is how the effective area is there. So for all the 4 stations, so if the rainfall over the entire catchment area is uniform, so at that point of time what will happen, the rainfall distribution is also going to be uniform. Okay, so that's why your Nx value, whichever is going to be there, that will be nearer to the all the Ni values which will be there. So in that case you can go ahead with arithmetic average. But if by chance these particular catchment area which we have, and in that 4 rain gauge stations what we have, so the characteristics of rainfall for all these 4 rain gauge stations, if they are very much different, okay, at that point of time if you go with the arithmetic average method, then the accuracy with which you are going to calculate the value of this px is going to be very less. So that's why it is always better to use normal ratio method. So in this normal ratio, what they do, they are introducing this n term for each of the p terms which have been there. Okay, why do we need that? Because we want to have a ratio where the average yearly rainfall with respect to the 3 decades rainfall value is known. Okay, and this ratio itself, ratio of Pi by Ni itself, we call it as weighted ratios. Okay, we call them as weighted ratios. So what does this weighted ratio give us is, this will neutralize any of the drastic variation what the rainfall has been collected from one particular station to the another. Okay, it will basically give you the ratio between the yearly rainfall up versus the normal rainfall. So this ratio itself we call it as weighted ratios. Okay, and because of this variation, if variation is too high, ultimately what I wanted to say here is, if the variation between the rain gauge stations and the rainfall characteristics in a catchment area is too high, so at that point of time we can use this normal ratio method, where even this variation in distribution will be considered for the calculation of value of px. Okay, so at this point of time, if you check out this particular formula, okay, so px is equals to what? Nx. So nx is nothing but, it is nx value is how much? This is 400, so I'll write it as 400, okay, into bracket. So we have nx value written, then we have 1 by m. So 1 by m is value is what? Here in our case, this m value is 3, as I discussed earlier. So this will be 1 by 3, okay, into, sorry, into, we have p1 by n1. So the same, this summation of pi by ni, if I just try to enlarge it over here, so it is going to become what? P1 by n1 for our particular problem right now. Similarly, P2 by N2, yeah, and similarly P3 by N3. In the base station, ultimately we have 3 stations. So its expansion is going to be something like this. So keeping that in mind, if I try to calculate this, so here I have Pi value as what? 60 divided by 570, that is P1 by N1 value. Then we have 75 by 600, P2 is 75 and N2 value is 600. I hope you are able to follow me with this. And similarly, the last one what we have, it is 68 divided by 550. Yeah, so this is nothing but the entire formula which is going to be there. So now once you solve this equation, you are going to get the value of px. So the total answer for this is going to be 47.18. So mm. Okay, so this is nothing but the value of this missing rainfall at station X for a particular year. Okay, so this is how basically we are going to solve the problems on normal ratio method. So this normal ratio method, 2 points finally I'd like to conclude here. One is this method is much more accurate than the arithmetic average method, first thing. Second thing is, even if your percentage variation of NIs and NX, if this particular variation is less than the 10%, okay, what do I meant by that? Imagine all these three values which are visible over here, imagine all the three values are within this range itself, just assume that. Okay, so at that time also there is no compulsion that you need to go ahead with the arithmetic average method. So even if this NI is varying less than 10%, even at that point of time you can go ahead with the normal ratio method. So there is no problem with that. But the only difference is, if you want to use arithmetic average method, then the condition of 10% will exist. If the variation is more than 10%, at that point of time you cannot use the arithmetic mean method. But if you want to use the normal ratio method, you have both the option. Even if the variation is less than 10% also you can use. If it is more than 10%, then also you can use this particular equation. Okay, the only thing is, as and when you use a normal ratio method more, the efficiency or else the accuracy with which you can determine these unknown values are going to be much more higher. Okay, so this is about the normal ratio methods. Now, the next one is estimating missing precipitation data at a station with multiple regression method. So this particular multiple regression method, you don't have it for your calculation part, because it is a trial and error basis and we need to determine few of the constants, so that requires a huge quantum of data to be available with us for solving those problems. So because of that practical difficulty, usually we don't get the problems on multiple regression method, but you should understand how this particular method works. Okay, so here let us again go ahead with the theoretical part. Multiple regression method. The rainfall data at missing station X is obtained from Px is equals to A plus B1 into P1, B2 into P2 plus B3 into P3 and so on. Okay, so till Bm plus Pm. So till that this particular equation is going to go ahead. Now in this, where A is equals to a constant should be nearer to 0. Okay, and b1, b2, b3 and so on are coefficient obtained similar to coefficients in the normal ratio method, that is bi is equals to 1 by m into pi by ni. So here b1, if I need to consider for the calculation, it will be 1 by m into p1 by n1. So this will be the formula for this b value, that is b1 value. Okay, in case of large amount of data to be estimated, a median error term TSY is added, wherein T is the normal random number with mean 0 and a standard deviation of 1. I'll repeat this once again. In case of a large amount of data to be estimated, a median error term TSY is added, where in T is the normal random number with a mean 0 and standard deviation 1, and Y is the standard error of estimation of Px. The inclusion of the term facilitates in maintaining the standard deviation of the estimated value of Px near the observed standard deviation. So now let us try to understand what this particular multiple regression method is. So first thing first, so this is nothing but the formula with which you can basically get that. So here again this will be continued so on up till what? Bm and Pm. Bm and Pm. So this will be continued till this particular part. Now here what they say is A is nothing but a constant and it should be nearer to 0. Okay, so A value should be nearer to 0. So whenever it is a trial and error method, what I said for the multiple regression method, so your value of A should be as near as possible to the 0. Now the next one is B1, B2, B3 up till what? Your Bm term are nothing but the coefficient obtained similar to the coefficient in the normal ratio method. That is, here the formula is given as what? Bi is equals to 1 by m pi by ni. So what does that indicate? As I told you, so for B1 your formula is going to be what? 1 by m into P1 by N1. Yeah. Similarly, B2 will be is equals to what? 1 by m, again this is going to remain same, P2 by N2. So like this, so you are going to go on calculating for the value of B up till m part. Okay, so that particular calculation will be there. So this is nothing but, in the previous case we have called this as what? Weighted ratios. Sorry, we had called this part P1 by N1, P2 by N2. So these parts we have called them as weighted ratios, right? So here the same thing what they are saying it as, these are nothing but the coefficients. They are calling it as coefficients which are similar to what? These weighted ratios. Okay, and the formula for that is, this is given over here. Now the next sentence, in case of large amount of data to be estimated, a medium error term TSY is added, where T is the normal random number with mean 0 and standard deviation 1. So what do you mean by this? Now imagine for calculating of this BM, so imagine this M value is, let us say, 100. Okay, imagine this M value is 100. So at that point of time you need to calculate these B1 values continuously for 100 individual times. So at that point of time it will take a lot of time for these particular calculations. So that's why what we can do is, whenever the large amount of data needs to be processed, we are going to introduce a term called as TSY. Okay, we are going to introduce a term called as TSY. So in this, what that T is indicating is, T is indicating what? A normal random number with a mean 0 and standard deviation 1. So this T is again, so how you are going to determine all these T values? That is with the help of trial and error methods. So what we have, so based on that we can set up a value of T. Now similarly this SY, so this is not only Y, this is SY. SY is the standard error in estimation of PX. So SY is the standard error in the estimation of PX. So basically if you remember, for determining the optimum number of rain gauge stations, so there N is equals to what? CV by epsilon the whole square. If you remember this formula from the previous classes, at that point of time this epsilon was what? By default we were taking 10% as an error for the determination of this optimum number of rain gauge stations. So similarly over here, this SY will give you the standard error in estimation of PX. That is, it is nothing but the what error is permissible for the estimation of value of PX. So that will be elaborated by this SY. Okay. Now, the inclusion of the term facilitates in maintaining the standard deviation of the estimated value of Px nearer to the observed standard deviation. That is, whenever you use a multiple regression mathematical models or methods for determination of value of Px, so at that point of time what will happen is, so this TSY term which is there, that will make sure that the estimated value or else the estimated standard deviation of the value for Px is nearer to the observed or actual standard deviation which is going to be there. So that is the work of what? TSY. I hope it is clear for you. So basically here we just need to understand the theoretical aspect. What is the formula for multiple regression method? Also, what is the significance of this TSY? Yeah. So please repeat this slide if needed. So you need to have a better understanding of this TSY term for the multiple regression method. Now, next one is, so checking the inconsistency in a particular data of station. So till now we have checked out with respect to the continuity. Okay, in the last 3 slides we have gone through with respect to the continuity of data. Okay, but right now here we'll need to check out with respect to the consistency or inconsistency of data. So here what I need to tell you is, imagine again this is your catchment area and if you have, let us say, some 3 rain gauge stations. So out of that here continuously you are getting the value from all these 3 rain gauge stations, so there is no issue with that. But here you want to check out, for example, this middle one, with what accuracy does this rain gauge station is giving you the value, okay, or else the collected rainfall data which is there, with what accuracy this particular thing is giving you. So that needs to be explained over here. So for that itself we need to go ahead with the data checking the inconsistency for a particular station. So here also let us go ahead with the theoretical aspect first. I'll read it out, then we'll try to understand this in a much better way. Okay, so first thing, test for consistency. The inconsistency in the rainfall data at a station would arise when the rain gauge station undergoes significant changes during the period of record. I'll repeat. The inconsistency in the rainfall data at a station would arise when the rain gauge station undergoes significant change during the period of record. Okay, some of these reasons for inconsistency are: first one, shifting of rain gauge stations to a new location. Second one, considerable change in the neighborhood of the station. Third point, changes in the ecosystem such as forest fires, landslides, etc. Fourth one, observational error from certain data. Okay, so here if you check out what this first paragraph is trying to explain is why the inconsistency may arise in a particular station. Okay, so it is trying to explain with respect to that. Now, first thing, whenever, if I'll try to elaborate this. Okay, okay, let us have one big catchment area. Okay, imagine that, or else we can take best example, that is, imagine uh, okay, one by one will go. Fine. So we have these catchment area, and imagine we have one, we have two, and we have three rain gauge stations. Okay. So at this point of time, first thing is, if you shift the rain gauge station to a new location. Okay. So if I try to shift this rain gauge station, which is over here, I am highlighting this. Sorry. If I try to shift the rain gauge station, which is over here, to a new location, imagine that new location is somewhere here. Okay, so at that point of time, what will happen? The surrounding of this rain gauge station was changed now. Okay, so whenever I am saying shifting of this, right, so it will be kilometers together. So don't be under the impression within a compound I am going to shift it from one point to another point. No, whenever we say regarding the catchment area, it will be hundreds of kilometers together also, because based on the density of that rain gauge network, what we have studied earlier, you have already seen one in what I can say 390 squared kilometers, 520 kilometers squared. So such kind of a huge areas will be there, and only one rain gauge station will be there. So at that point of time, the shifting, whenever we speak, it may be in terms of hundreds of kilometers together also. Okay, so whenever you shift it to a new location, at that point of time, the surrounding area of this particular rain gauge will differ, and because of which again your data may become inconsistent. I hope that is clear. Now the second point is considerable change in the neighborhood of the station. So considerable change in the neighborhood of station is what? One is, if you change the location, automatically even the second point will come. Or imagine you have your rain gauge station here only, but the surrounding area has been developed, or there has been a circumstantial what I can say drastic changes in the surrounding area. So to explain this second point, the best example what I can take is our college premises itself. Okay, so you know that our college has established in the year what, 2009. Okay, so at that point of time, imagine this is our college area or campus. Imagine this. Okay, so in 2009 the construction work has started. Okay, now if I consider, let us say 2008. Okay, if I consider the year 2008, so at that point of time our entire campus was covered with only grass, so there was no building as such. So your entire campus was covered with what? Only grass. I hope you can imagine that. So there was no man-made structure over here, only that rocky strata was there, and in turn our entire campus was covered with grass, trees, or whatever that is. Okay, so whenever we started the construction in 2009, and imagine our construction was complete in the year let us say 2014. Okay, most of our construction was over in 2014. So till 2014, what we had done over here, we have constructed n number of buildings. We had our academic block, we had our this L-shaped again, we had our academic block itself, we have our admin section here, we have our auditorium over here. Yeah, so we had made we have sports ground, we have workshop, and we have hostels. So all these buildings whenever we construct, okay, so from 2008 till 2014 there was a drastic change in the surrounding environment. because initially there was no man-made structure in 2008, but now in 2014 we had a huge construction area which was there in the campus. So imagine that if a rain gauge station would have been there at the center of our campus. Okay, so in the year 2008, because of that naturally available grassland and the environment, so we may had one type of rainfall characteristic. I hope you are getting my point. So in 2008 or else till 2008, from the beginning of the time, even if you imagine till 2008, the rainfall characteristic would have been like, let us say, rainfall characteristic 1, if I just need to give the number to that. Now after the construction, let us say in 2014 when it is completed, the rain gauge station is not shifted. Imagine the rain gauge station is still in its original position, but the surrounding to that particular area has seen a drastic change. Okay, has seen a drastic change. So at that point of time, what will happen? The rainfall characteristics in 2014 will be definitely different from the initial one. So in 2008 year, what kind of rainfall characteristic we might had in our college premises had changed drastically in 2014. The reason being what? We had some construction activity which has been taking place in that area. So this is how the second point can be defended over here. So considerable change in the neighborhood of the station, if it is occurring at that point of time, the rainfall characteristics will change, and because of that there will be some inconsistency in the data that the station has been recording or measuring or providing to you will be there. So that is the second point. Now the third point is changes in the ecosystem such as forest fire, landslides, etc. So this third point will elaborate on natural calamities. It is not with respect to the man-made activities as we have studied in the second point. For the third point, basically it will be the natural calamities. Imagine this. In any of this case, imagine this particular second rain gauge station what we have over here. Okay, so again in the year, let us say 2008, okay, we don't have any natural calamities, so we had one set of conditions for the surrounding over here. And imagine in 2012 there was a landslide in this particular region. So there what will happen? Because of that natural calamity, that is a landslide, your entire neighborhood will get changed in its characteristics. Similarly, if you have any forest fires, so that may change the characteristics of the land. So if you have deforestation, so that is the trees are cut because of any of the activities, so even those such things will come under this third point. So again, because of such a drastic change in the surroundings, the rainfall characteristics from 2008 and 2012 will be different, and because of which again the inconsistency in data may arise in a particular rain gauge station. Okay, that is the third point. Now the fourth point is observational error from certain data. So this is basically what? A human error. What here this point is trying to say is human error. So here imagine you have this rain gauge station and it is giving you the correct data only, but unfortunately the person who is actually reading that data and noting it down in a register or in particular system, imagine if he makes some mistakes, so then also the data getting from this particular rain gauge station is inconsistent, even though it is not the fault of rain gauge station, it is a fault of a human being who has actually what I can say is seeing that reading and taking it down in a particular register or any of the document. So even at that point of time we need to think of inconsistency in data. So that's why even at that point of time inconsistency may arise in the data given by the rain gauge station. So that's why these four points which were discussed, that will be there, because of which there might be some inconsistency in the rainfall data collected from the rain gauge stations. Okay, so this is what the first particular sentence or else a para means over here. Okay, now we'll rub off these, then we'll go for the next para. Okay. Now, the consistency of rainfall data is checked using double mass curve technique. The consistency of rainfall data is checked using double mass curve technique, which depends on the principle that the data obtained from the parent population is consistent. If the rain gauge station X, whose rainfall record is to be tested for consistency, then the rainfall data of the base station, minimum 5 to 10 in number, in the neighborhood are collected. The rainfall data of station X and the average annual rainfall of base stations is arranged in reverse chronological order starting from the recent. The cumulative rainfall of station X, that is sigma Px, and the cumulative of average annual rainfall of base stations sigma P average computed are plotted taking sigma P average on x-axis and sigma Px on y-axis. If the data plots fall on the nearly straight line, it indicates the rainfall data at station X are consistent. However, when a deviation is observed in the plot, it shows that the rainfall record of station X are not consistent and need correction. On the other hand, if the deviation is for only 3 to 4 records and when it comes back to the original trend, it indicates local variations and is neglected. When the deviation is for more than 5 successive records, the correction are to be applied. The figure shows a typical inconsistent rainfall data. So in the next slide, you are going to check out that figure. If tan alpha and tan alpha dash are the slope of actual double mass curve and corrected double mass curve, then the adjusted rainfall value Pcx is given by Pcx is equals to tan alpha dash divided by tan alpha into P. Tan alpha dash divided by tan alpha. So at this point of time, into P, yeah, that is right. So here, whenever you check out the next figure or the figure related to this explanation, so this tan alpha dash can be replaced with C. Tan alpha dash can be replaced with C and tan alpha can be replaced with A. And similarly, P can be replaced with Px. So for that, whichever year that error is there, so for that we need to have this Px value. Okay, so this is how basically your double mass curve technique works. So what I request everyone is, before we have our next figure in the next class, okay, so I request everyone to read this particular sentence paragraphs once again to understand the basics first. Okay, because again the same thing I will be explaining even in the next slide, but you need to have that continuity. And once we solve the problems on these, then only this entire double mass curve technique is going to be clear for you. Because even to solve this double mass curve technique, we are going to use that particular graphical representation. And usually to solve this double mass curve technique for a particular what I can say problem, we need to spend around 2 hours just to spend one problem, or else just to solve one problem of double mass curve technique. Okay, so you have these things in your syllabus and we are going to study or else even the solve the problems on these. Okay, so my intention for these theory classes, what here we'll just try to understand the theoretical aspect first, and then whenever you come back to the college, so that time itself we are going to understand or else we are going to solve the double mass curve technique problem. Okay, so I request everyone to read this paragraph once again. Keep that in your mind. So in your next class, we are going to study with respect to the figure and how to go ahead with the calculation of this PCX value. Okay.